China's most famous cities and provinces are on or near its coastline, that's for sure. Just think of Shanghai, Hong Kong, Canton or Beijing and you'll know what I mean. And indeed, these are the roaring engines of the Chinese economy, but for this reason the inland regions are often overlooked and hardly anyone knows anything about them. Today we'll try and rectify this injustice by presenting the inland province of Guizhou. Hi, welcome to 7 Facts. Guizhou by Chinese standards is not an extraordinarily big province. With a size of 176,000 square kilometers and less than 39 million people, Guizhou is not at all significant within the country. But when you look at these numbers, you might realize that you could fit Estonia, Denmark, Switzerland and the Netherlands inside with plenty of room to spare. However, before we put all these countries in Guizhou, we better warn the people that it's gonna be hard to get around. Over 90% of these lands are covered by mountains or hills. The landscape is epic though. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to be done economy-wise. Guizhou has the 4th lowest GDP per capita in the country. But that of course doesn't mean that there's nothing here to explore, far from it in fact. And as usual, we begin with a peek into this land's history. Guizhou has been the site of civilizations for thousands of years. Over 3,000 years ago, the ancient state of Shu used to have these lands within its borders. Think about that for a moment. 3,000 years ago, most of Europe was still prehistoric, just barely entering the Iron Age, but the lands of Guizhou were already inhabited by a self-organizing civilization. Over the next centuries, up to our era, Guizhou switched its masters several times to the Chu state, to the Dian kingdom, the Han dynasty, Shu Han, Cao Wei, etc. But as a province, Guizhou emerged much later in 1413 AD under the Ming dynasty. During those times and up to the 18th century, one of the larger minorities of Guizhou, the Miao, rebelled periodically but were defeated every time. Before and after the fall of China's last dynasty in 1911, the country was pretty much in disarray and Guizhou became home to criminal triads and warlords, but none left a lasting impression. The same cannot be said about the communists though. Between 1934 and 1935, the Chinese Red Army of the Communists had to retreat from the National Army in what is now called the Long March. During this arduous march, members of the Communist Party met in Zunyi, where one of the members of the Politburo criticized the leadership, won the support of the others, and paved the way for him to take over military command and become the leader of the Chinese Communist Party. That member was Mao Zedong, one of the most infamous political leaders in humanity's entire history. That's not necessarily a record you want your province to have, but there it is. And anyway, Guizhou wasn't doing that great after the communist takeover either. By the 1970s, it became the poorest province in the entire country, a status it struggles to leave behind to this day. Guizhou's capital city is Guiyang. It sits right in the middle of the province at the pretty high altitude of 1100 meters. Don't worry, that doesn't mean it's always cold, it's actually pretty nice with a balm, albeit humid subtropical climate. You won't see a lot of the sun though, as Guiyang is China's least sunny major city. If you feel like investing in China, this might be a good place to start. With an annual economic growth of over 10%, Guiyang is becoming a dynamic and prosperous city very fast. And the 6 million residents, nearly 20% of whom are ethnic minorities, ensure a diverse, cosmopolitan and exciting atmosphere. Furthermore, Guiyang is a 1300-year-old city with a lot of history, old buildings and plenty of sights to see, old and new. So you won't be bored as a tourist either, that's pretty much guaranteed. What makes any place on earth warm and welcoming is the people that live there. So let's take a moment and talk about the people of Guizhou. As you might expect, the largest population is represented by the Han Chinese. By the way, globally they are the largest ethnic group on the planet. 18% of all human beings identify as Han Chinese. Anyway, back to Guizhou. While the Han Chinese are the province's main population, they're definitely not alone. Guizhou is actually one of China's most diverse provinces where minority groups account for 37% of the population. The Miao are one of these groups, a nation with roots that extend all the way back to the 26th century BC. They have their own language, customs, social norms, and are quite distinct but equally as fascinating as the rest of China. The Bouyei are a Thai nation, again one of the oldest peoples of China, having a culture based on agriculture and beautiful handcrafting. The Kam are another Thai nation renowned for the unique choir singing, Kagal Laos, and an also unique style of covered bridges called wind and rain bridges. The Tucha are descendants of the ancient Ba people living in the Wuling Mountains for at least 2500 years. And then there are the Yi, the Kaija, the Lu, the Tunbao, and nearly 2 dozens of other minorities, all sharing the land of Guizhou just as they've been doing for many thousands of years. So, Guizhou has plenty of cultural resources to share with the rest of the world, but it's not exactly a rich province, and that might discourage some tourists to come here. Well, come to your senses and book a flight. Guizhou's amazing people are only equaled by the outstanding landscapes and gorgeous traditional architecture. And the people of China know this and they do come to visit. And I ain't talking hundreds of thousands, not even millions and not even tens of millions. 740 million visitors come to Guizhou every year, several times per year actually. That is of course a huge number, but as I said, domestic visitors return to Guizhou several times, and these are in fact verified numbers. So if you think Guizhou is just not worth your time, think again. Speaking of tourism, here's a sample of what Guizhou has to offer. The Wanfengling Scenic Area, or Wanfeng Forest, is an incredible park filled with spectacular karst peaks over an area of 2,000 square kilometers. The name actually says it all, the Forest of 10,000 Peaks. These green peaks intertwine with the cozy villages of the Bouyei people, thus combining leisure and scenic routes with cultural tourism. The thousands of otherworldly peaks are surrounded by green fields, winding rivers and creeks, and just a general sense of bliss. From these pictures alone, we can see that Wanfengling fully deserves its reputation as one of China's great natural wonders. As I said, at one point Guizhou became the poorest region of China. And while to this day the province has the 4th lowest GDP per capita in the country, that situation is changing fast. Since 2010, Guizhou achieved to become one of the fastest growing economies in China. Lots and lots of infrastructure projects connected the province to the rest of the country, and while before Guizhou relied on mining, forestry and energy production for money and jobs, now the focus shifted to high tech, especially big data, which transformed the province into basically a giant internet data center. Not to mention the really impressive numbers achieved in the tourism sector, which begins to catch the attention of not just local but also international tourists. In all, life in Guizhou is still not easy or economically decent for a lot of people, but this is changing year after year and prosperity is finally on the horizon. Which of course is always good to hear. And that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Leave your comments downstairs, and if you wish to do so, you can help out this channel through my Patreon page. I do hope to see you next time. Bye.